waiting for the echo. It is 6:30, so we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome this evening to the Community Consolidated School District 46 Board of Education meeting for Wednesday, May 5th, beginning at 6:30 p.m. I'd like to call the meeting to order with a roll call, please.
Mack.
Here.
Braden.
Here.
Anderson.
Here.
LaCroix.
Here.
Nash.
Here.
And Miller.
Here.
All right, thank you. We established quorum. We'll go ahead and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. All right, thank you. Next is the approval of the agenda. May I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda, please?
So moved. Second.
Okay.
Miller.
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
Mack.
Aye.
Braden.
Aye.
LaCroix.
Aye.
And Nash.
Aye.
Okay, thank you, everybody. That approves the agenda, and that brings us to our first section of public comments. Do we have any public comments?
We do have one public comment. I'll be happy to read it. This is from Dan Swartz, who wrote, "Huge thank you to all the teachers, support staff, instructional assistants, administrators, and Board of Education this year. There have been many first days of school, but each time, teachers had a smile on their face, ready to welcome the students."
Wonderful, thank you for sharing that. That brings us to board reports for this evening. Anybody have a board report they'd like to share?
Hi, Dr. Mack. This is Mrs. Nash.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to thank you. I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank all of the phenomenal teachers of District 46 in recognition of Teachers Appreciation Week. We know that we are coming off of an extraordinary year, but that aside, our teachers are extraordinary always. So just wanted to take the opportunity to say thank you for all that you do, all that you continue to do amidst this agile environment that we're in without missing a beat and leaning in to help our children during this difficult yet challenging time. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Nash. Thank you, Ms. Nash. Go ahead, Ms. Miller.
So I'll echo that. And I definitely agree and want to extend those same wishes for our teachers, and want to think back a little bit too and acknowledge Tom Meskel for the work that he did not only as an educator but also on our board. And then the other just thing I wanted to share with you is the Bilingual Parent Summit is May 15th. I went 2 years ago and found it really helpful. I can't go this year, but I believe some of us, spots are open for some of us, and would need to confirm that. But I wanted to let you know that it's a virtual online offering, and again, it's May 15th for the Bilingual Parent Summit.
Other board members' comments? I'd like to add my comments as well for a happy Teacher Appreciation Week. We certainly, as my colleagues have said, have been through an unusual year, and we appreciate everything, all the work that the teachers and the staff and the district has done for our community and for our kids. So thank you very much. All right. That moves me to you, Dr. Glickman, Superintendent's report.
Well, we have a theme because I too am starting with teacher appreciation. So I I wrote something for our teachers, and you've already seen it. It went out into the community and to our teachers, but I'm going to take the opportunity. This is a recorded meeting, and we'll always have it, and I really want to say this verbally as well. So here we go. In honor of Teacher Appreciation Week, let's do a little review. In March of 2020, we said to our teachers, please figure out how to teach remotely, starting now, even though we didn't know that this was coming and you are not trained for it. Please keep teaching the students and also help them to feel emotionally safe and connected to you and each other. Please make time to respond to parents and guardian concerns quickly, even though you are also suddenly teaching through a platform that is brand new to you. Please do all of this while also taking care of the health, safety, and learning needs of your families, and please take care of yourselves. Also, to our teachers in grades 2 and below, we said, please do all of that even though we have not distributed devices to your students because we did not know that there might be a pandemic. And so they are all working on different kinds of devices, and many have to share devices. And our teachers did all of that. In August of 2020, we said to our teachers, please take everything that you learned last spring along with new tools and training and provide instruction that is as rigorous as it would be if the students were on site. Please collaborate with your colleagues to continue learning and changing because we do not know how long we will be doing this. Please do all of this while also taking care of the health, safety, and learning needs of your families, and please take care of yourselves. Also, to our teachers in grades 2 and below, we said, all of your students now have Chromebooks. Please teach them how to use them, even though you cannot be in the same room with them. We said, we are worried about our students' social and emotional development along with their academics. Please take care of this. And our teachers did all of that. In February of 2021, we said to our teachers, please come back into the schools. Some of your students will be in the classroom with you and will demand your attention. Some of your students will be at home and will demand your attention. Please give all of your attention to both of those groups. Please do all of this even though you may feel fear for your own safety, because we know that you have made education your career and you are devoted to your students and to each other. And our teachers did all of that. In April of 2021, we said to our teachers, please do what you did in February, but there will be many more students in your classrooms. Even though there will be more students in school, please make sure that they are socially distanced. Please continue giving all of your attention to the students who are in your classrooms and all of your attention to the students who are at home. Please make sure that the students at home feel fully engaged in what is happening in the classroom. Also, please keep taking care of your own families and yourselves and each other. And our students did all of that. And that about sums it up, right? It is truly amazing what our teachers have accomplished after the past 13, 14 months. They did one thing, then they pivoted. I pause because I'm tired of the word pivot. And they did another and another and another. Teachers and all of the caring, resourceful, collaborative, creative, and energetic staff members in School District 46, thank you for your incredible service. So that is my ode to our teaching staff. We will never be able to fully thank you, but we will continue to try. And that is a segue into the fact that actually we are now also moving into Nurses Week. And just like our teachers deserve all of our thanks, so do our nurses who are doing things that they never thought that they would have to do in schools. And I'm going to hand this over to Heather Lorenzo, who works most closely with our nurses, to talk a little bit about that.
Thank you. I don't know how to follow that, but I'm going to try my best because they deserve it all. Our nurses already show up in a normal year and provide medical needs from the very most basic Band-Aid and ice pack to very high, intense, critical, emergent areas and needs. This year has changed everything for them. Their workload has tripled in most days, which has included building protocols and health and safety practices, ensuring PPE is available, putting that PPE on every time a student shows up with a symptom, and going in and taking care of all of our children. Then the follow-up to that is calling parents, ensuring understanding of protocols and processes, and having very challenging conversations with our families and community. With that, they show up every day and put in extensive hours and have done amazing work. And I also have to kind of rope in those health clerks with them, because they're doing that work tirelessly as well. So they deserve all the recognition. They have an interesting Nurses Week in that it starts tomorrow, and that runs through the 12th. So if you have a moment to recognize them, I encourage you to do so, because they deserve it for sure. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's really amazing what our nurses have done over the past year. So, and I'd also like to recognize Mrs. Lorenzo, who, you know, the nursing is underneath her heading, and it's typically underneath the heading of a director of pupil services, a director of student services, a special education director. That's common. Usually it's a very small part of this kind of a role. But boy, did it grow this year. So thank you for growing with it and sticking with it, because we absolutely needed you. We will hand it over to Mr. Lewis to talk with us about some assessment matters, and I believe BPAC as well.
Thank you for that. I have some updates to share from the EL Bilingual Department first. So the first thing is that access testing is underway. This is the annual state English proficiency exam for English learners. There are 4 testing sessions that focus on listening, reading, writing, and listening, reading, writing, speaking. We should receive these results in early August. We have been testing our on-site students and also all the students who've agreed to come in to the schools to be assessed with access. So that's been a rotation of services. The next is about EL as well, EL Bilingual, that our next BPAC stands for Bilingual Parent Advisory Council, event of the year is taking place on May 26th at Prairie View School. It's a drive-by literacy night. Parents are asked to register their child or their children for a make and take build a reading buddy kit. And the kit's going to include the animal, the stuffing, a heart to put inside, a birth certificate, and a book. And since this is a drive-by event, our rain date is May 27th, 2021. So this is open to all of our EL and bilingual students across the district. So that's pretty exciting. And then the thing I wanted to share is that we've completed our round of MAP, Measure of Academic Progress testing for students in grades 1 through 8. That happened mainly on April 26th and 27th. Already the results are being reviewed and used for math placement discussions, class assignments for next year, summer school, and discussions about unfinished learning that we want to continue to work on. We'll be sending home copies of these near the end of the school year to parents and guardians. And we had a few issues with connectivity with our remote students, but overall it was a very good, successful MAP assessment window. We are in the process of getting ready for our other state-required assessments, the Illinois Assessment of Readiness and the Illinois Science Assessment. You've heard that this is not able to be given remotely. At the moment, we have 19 students across the district who've asked to come in and participate, spread across multiple of the buildings at this time. So if there's any other parents who want their child to be assessed, we just need to know, and we'll get them scheduled. So we're hoping to have that list finalized after Monday of next week, so we can get all the test sessions created and organized for the following week. Those are all of my updates.
Thank you. Before I continue, I simply want to comment that I am at this time positioned to have the early evening sun directly in my eyes. So if I'm squinting, that would be why. but I think I can read my screen, so it's all good. So Paul mentioned a bit about next year, and I know everyone is eager to know about next year. Now, in June, we will be providing a full report about our plans for next year, for the 21-22 school year, but I do want to spend a few minutes right now to talk about the plans that we are currently working on and the topics that are taking a lot of focus at this time. So next year, we are preparing to have nearly all of our students back in our classrooms, but we do not have new parameters from the state of Illinois. In fact, the state has told us they're not planning to give us new parameters. And so I share that because until or unless we hear otherwise, we do expect that we will still be keeping our students 3 to 6 feet apart, keeping our students 6 feet apart for sure when they're eating because they're unmasked, along with a whole lot of other requirements that we are still living under. But we've been learning from our experiences. We learned from our hybrid experiences starting in February. We've been learning from our experiences that are continuing with hybrid to some extent, with some students at home and some students on site this April. And so we are preparing to have all of our students back on site. Here are some things we're working on. One of them obviously has to do with space, and that's why I started talking about those parameters. So I want to talk about classrooms for a moment. When we talk about class size parameters, there are really 2 different parameters that we're living under. One is a parameter that we've experienced for a long time, and that's our Board of Education parameters. Those are the agreed upon parameters of how many students we can have in a classroom at every grade level. Now, however, we also have a second parameter, which is how many students can we have in a classroom if we're keeping them no closer than 3 feet apart. And as we've talked about throughout the year, that varies building by building, classroom by classroom. So we've had to look at both of those things, and I bring that up because recently, as we continued to analyze this, we discovered that we have 3 grade levels in our school district in different buildings. So basically three schools that have a grade level that currently has projected class sizes for next year that fit within the board parameters, but do not fit within the parameters of how many students we can safely have in a classroom based on the 3-foot requirement. So at Meadowview 4th grade, and at Woodview 3rd grade, and at Avon 4th grade, we are adding teachers. We're adding 1 teacher for each one of those grade levels. That is not something that we would expect to be doing in the future, because again, those are classrooms that are within the board parameters, but we cannot put that many students within a class. So that's one of the pieces that we're looking at. We're also continuing to look at our lunchrooms. Board, we are currently sitting in one of those lunchrooms right now here at Frederick. Our principals continue to assess their space, and next week I believe I'll have from each one of them a final plan for a second, and in some cases possibly even a 3rd lunch space that they will be using next year so that all of their students can be on site. And what does that mean? More desks, because every child needs a desk in the classroom and a desk in the lunchroom. And so I should have mentioned earlier when I talked about those extra teachers that we'll be hiring that we intend to use ESSER funds to hire those teachers. We will also be using ESSER funds to buy new desks. We do have a plan because one thing we don't want to do is buy a whole bunch of desks that we don't need in the future. So what we're planning to do, we have many schools that have a lot of old desks that we do need next year. But as we look at our options for buying desks, we're intending to purchase desks that are a little bit more up to date, not so traditional, and can be used in the future for flexible seating when flexible seating is once again an option, which it isn't right now. So that's a project that we're working on, and again, we would use ESSER funds for that. Now, I mentioned that we expect to have nearly all of our students on site. So what about remote students? So I want to talk about that for a moment because that's something we're also working on. Right now, we have about 30% of our students who are remote for family choice. Moving into next year, based on the recommendations that we have from the state about their desire for us to have as many students as possible on site, and based on really what we as a school district believe is best for our learners, we are planning to provide remote learning only for students who have medical needs, medical conditions that would put them at great risk if they contracted COVID, or if they have family members who have such conditions. And there are a couple of options there. One is to create our own district program. However, we are also exploring with other school districts in the county doing a county-wide program. So it would not be a District 46 program, it would be a Lake County program that we could send our students to. And so that's a project that many superintendents throughout the county are working on together, and more to come on that. But I'm going to tell you that likely, if I believe that's going to be an option for us, and it will be a much more cost-effective option for us, and better for us probably in quite a few ways, as we wouldn't be using our own staff when we need them for so many other projects, like teaching in the classroom. And that, too, we would be using ESSER funds for, because it would not come free of cost to us, of course. We would have to be paying for that. We are also talking about the students who need to quarantine. So these would be students who are on-site students, but who either contract COVID or are needing to quarantine because they're close contacts, or are otherwise ill and, they haven't been tested for COVID. So we have a few options for that, and our administration is talking about those options, and tomorrow I'll be talking with our union leadership about those options, getting feedback about that. So more to come regarding those options. And finally, speaking of COVID testing, we are continuing to look at some options regarding testing our community members, really being our students and staff members who perhaps want to be tested for COVID. In the past, we have not had viable options to us that were free of cost. However, now we may. And so I'm in the process of investigating a couple of those options to see if there's one that might be a good fit for us. And so I'll bring more information to you when I have it. So expect there to be more information in kind of pieces over the next couple of board meetings, with our intent to bring a full-blown plan to the board in June. Not sure if it'll be the first meeting or the second. We'll see how things go. So that's all about next year. And then my last piece for this report is that at our last meeting, Tamika had asked about the ISIL program that I'm participating in. This is the 18-month superintendent development program that I volunteered to be a part of. And Tamika, you had asked, what I'm learning from it and what can we all learn together from it. And I said I would share a little information today through the superintendent's report. So I do want to let you know that I've had my first session. That was a few weeks ago, and that was all remote. But moving forward, we'll be in person in Springfield, and I have my next weekend. It's a full day, a very full day on a Friday and a half a day on a Saturday in Springfield in about a month. So far, it has been a deep dive into a lot of reading and reflection. So I'm in the middle of a couple of books that are wonderful leadership books that we're all, everyone in the group are reading and will be discussing. There's a lot of writing and reflection involved in that as well. So that's kind of saved for Saturdays these days. Also, I'm assigned a coach as a part of this program, which is really exciting to me. And so I've had my first meeting with that coach, and that was wonderful. And ultimately, over the 18-month program, I am to create two different plans, a district plan and a personal plan. And I can't tell you much about that yet because I don't know much about that yet. But I can tell you, and this is certainly something that's been recommended to us, that at the very least, the district plan will be tightly hooked to our new strategic plan that we'll be talking about. So that's what I have for you right now for the ISO update and for the superintendent's update.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gligman. Okay, that moves us to committee reports. So we have Community Engagement Committee listed for this evening. Mrs. Miller?
No report
No
tonight.
report. All right. All right, next on the agenda is the consent agenda, and I would call for a motion to approve the consent agenda, including the report that was given to us by Sue earlier today, the personnel addendum.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
So I'm not sure if how this works with Robert's Rule of Order, but I wanted to make a motion to separate the Consolidated District Plan and have that be a separate discussion. So do
Right.
we,
I think you can make a motion to do that, yeah.
within? Okay, so
Yeah.
I'm going to move that we separate the ISB Consolidated District Plan and move it to be a distinct discussion item.
Have a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
Okay, so the motion is to remove the ISB Consolidated District Plan. Mrs. Miller made the motion to remove that from the consent agenda, to have a separate discussion item for that on the full agenda. And Mrs. Braden seconded that motion?
Braden,
Aye.
Nash,
Aye.
LaCroy,
Aye.
Anderson,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
and Mack.
Aye. Okay, so now that removes that from the consent agenda. Do we have to go back and vote for the remaining part of the consent agenda then?
Yep.
Right, okay. Okay, so we'll go back to, I'll entertain another motion for the consent agenda, this time with the ISB Consolidated District Plan removed from the consent agenda, but including the personnel addendum from earlier today.
So moved.
Second.
Okay?
Braden,
Aye.
Nash,
Aye.
LaCroy,
Aye.
Anderson,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
and Mack.
Aye. Okay, thank you. Would we add that to a discussion topic for the future agenda then? Or- I mean, the discussion topic now for,
Christy, was it your intent to have a conversation tonight about the Consolidated District Plan? Yeah, okay. I think you can just do it as an action item, continuous, but then there can be conversation about it. I think you can do it as an action item, because it was already an action item. Yeah. I think it can be, yeah.
did you want to start with that, Mrs. Miller? Go ahead.
Sure. So I printed it out without looking at how many pages it is, and it's quite a project. And wanted just to ask Mr. Lewis, if you would please, kind of in layman's terms and just a real broad overview, I completely recognize that we have not adopted a new strategic plan yet, but wanted to get a sense of just how this plan will intersect with what we think the new strategic plan will be.
I'm certainly glad to provide that information for you. So the Consolidated District Plan is a state requirement every 2 years for us to submit this plan. It's been on the board agenda in the past. And the purpose behind the district plan is it's a state requirement for us to submit every 2 years, as I said, prior to us submitting any of the specific grants. And so the grants that I'm talking about are Title I, Title II, Title III, special ed grants, Title IV, all the different grants that we submit, we have to have a unified plan. And my understanding of the Consolidated District Plan is to encourage or maybe force district departments to work together. We have never had that issue in District 46 that's a problem, because the EL department and the SPED department and the curriculum department and the technology department, we're relatively small. And so we all are very close colleagues and we talk about it. But in some school districts, I understand that those are completely different worlds, and they want to make sure that we are having a consolidated effort, that we're using our money effectively and efficiently across all of those departments. So that's really the purpose. So before we submit any of our grants, we have to have the consolidated district plan presented to the school board. We have to have the minutes of the meeting, and then we can submit the consolidated district plan, which then unlocks the grants for us to finally submit. You asked specifically, though, about the strategic plan. In our document, we did take the liberty to talk about the draft mission, vision, values, and goals that are being considered as part of our strategic plan, because they do ask how our work is connected to district goals. So we did look at the strategic plan draft and indicate that that's what we wanted to move forward with. And so specifically, once we get this district plan approved and then we start writing the grants then can be specific to our strategic plan needs. And the one I'll probably highlight as the easiest one is Title II. Title II is all about professional development. So we already know that there are some very specific topics in our strategic plan that will involve professional development. Some of those topics include equity. Some of them talk about culturally responsive education or environment. Some of them talk about materials choices and how we can provide good environments for all of our students. And that can include inside and outside of our buildings, as our strategic plan indicates. So then when we start writing the grants, we'll be able to identify specific areas of action steps from our strategic plan goals that we will want to be addressing. So Title II, as under PD, helps us provide for substitutes. So when teachers go to workshops, or when we have, more importantly, release time for our teachers to work on extended projects, that we can work on those same topics again. So it does all fit together, that we want to work on the continuity of services across all those grants. And then we also want to make sure that we're focusing on our district goals, which are going to be presented very soon in the board meetings, and we'll be able to make those final. So we took a little bit of liberty to know what's coming, but we also know that those are good things for our district and things that we need. I hope I've answered some or all of the concerns or questions.
No concerns, just questions, and thank you and your team for all of this work, because it's, like I said, quite a document and really, really detailed and specific.
It did
Thank
take
you.
all of us, all the people listed, so Dr. Diaz, Heather Lorenzo, myself, Linda Mizwicki, Mr. Vipond was included, Mrs. Woodruff was involved, Mrs. Zaris from the title schools. We even consulted with our new CSBO about some questions that we had. So it is a very big team effort to get that document completed. I'm glad to answer any other questions.
Any other questions from other board members?
No, that was a good overview. Thank you, Mr. Lois.
There we go. All right, we'll move to the action items, and we'll bring that back to the action items. So the first action item is a motion to approve then the ISB Consolidated District Plan, as explained in further detail.
So moved?
Second.
Okay.
Braden,
Aye.
Nash,
Aye.
LaCroy,
Aye.
Anderson,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Mack.
Aye. Okay, motion carries. The next action item is a motion to approve the 21-22 Board of Education meeting calendar.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any questions or anything about that? Okay.
Miller,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
Nash,
Aye.
Braden,
Aye.
LaCroy,
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Next item is a motion to approve school treasurer's bond from Liberty Mutual.
Mr. Mack, I would love to be able to talk for a moment about these
Yes.
3 action items. They all
Sure.
kind of go together and
course.
might,
You want to do them individually or?
I'll
as a
talk, I'll
motion?
talk about all 3 of them.
Okay.
And then we can vote. Sound okay?
Okay.
All right, so first of all, as you know, we are welcoming aboard our new Chief School Business Officer, Mr. Christopher Wildman, who will therefore also be the district treasurer. And anytime there is a new treasurer, the treasurer has to be bonded. So that's what this item is for. It's a routine procedure that we are required to do. So now we're going to talk for a moment about our business office and Mr. Wildman joining us. You may remember, board, you definitely remember that this year, up until now, we have been having 2 retired CSBOs, finance directors, in our business office. 2 wonderful people who are retired administrators who've been working for us. Mrs. Jane McGowan worked for us through, I believe it was end of February, beginning of March. And we already said goodbye to her and we thanked her. Mrs. Mary Whirling, her last day was this past Monday. In fact, I was remiss in not thanking her as a part of my superintendent's report. Mary has worked for us actually for the last year and a half in a few different ways, because last year she did some work for us as well. And we are incredibly indebted to her for all of her work in our school district. Monday was her last day. Both of those retired administrators had limits based on the retirement systems in our state. They could only work so many days and so many hours, and so they can't work any further. What we had done a couple of months ago is ask Mr. Wildman, who was to start with us full-time July 1st, we asked him if he would come over and do some per diem work for us to get through the end of the school year. And he said yes. And so back in March, you approved a per diem contract for us, where he was going to be working 1 or 2 days for us for the rest of this school year until he starts full-time in July. However, over the past week, the situation got much better for us, because his current school district where he's working, North Shore District 112, has agreed to allow him to begin working for us full-time. Now, they have some other people who can fill in for him. We do not. And so we are incredibly grateful to North Shore School District 112 for allowing this. And that explains these other 2 agenda items, because first, we had to have Mr. Wildman ask to rescind his per diem contract, which he did via email. And so that's going to be the first motion, to rescind his per diem contract. And then we're asking you to approve an amended contract for Mr. Wildman, which simply, it has everything in it that was in his yearly contract that was meant to start July 1, but instead will be starting tomorrow, and therefore has some proration on it. Does anyone have any questions about any of those, any of that information? Okay.
Did we have a motion for the bond one yet? No.
No.
So we need a motion to approve the school treasurer bond from Liberty Mutual.
So moved.
Second.
Okay?
LaCroy,
Aye.
Braden,
Aye.
Anderson,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
and Nash.
Aye.
Okay, that motion carries. The next motion is the motion to rescind the per diem contract for Christopher Wildman, Assistant Superintendent of Finance.
So moved.
Second.
Okay?
Anderson,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
Braden,
Aye.
LaCroy,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Nash.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. And the final motion then is the motion to approve the amended contract for Christopher Wildman, Assistant Superintendent of Finance.
So moved.
Second.
Okay.
Mack,
Aye?
Braden,
Aye.
Anderson,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
LaCroy,
Aye.
and Nash.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. The motion carries. All right. There is no unfinished business on the agenda for this evening, so we'll move directly to the new business section. We've got 3 items on here for us to discuss. The first one is the discussion of the request for proposal and RFP for contracted night cleaning. Are we-
Mr. Halperin, can you just say a few words about that topic?
Dr. Glickman, thank you very much. Board of Education, thank you. CCSD 46 has been under contract with RJB since 2015. We are currently in a 1-year contract that is coming up in October, and due to prices rising and the ability to be able to go out and look for a possible new cleaning contract and amend what we have right now for current cleaning standards and for the future, we are seeking the board's approval to be able to go out for an RFP to have that done.
Any questions from the board members?
Thank you, Mr. Halperin.
All right. Question. So as it pertains to the suppliers that's being considered as a result of COVID-19, are there any industry recommended standards or certifications that we need to make sure we're identifying from the supplier base as part of this RFP?
No, not necessarily.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions from board members? Or we have consent for that to go forward? Okay. All right, thank you, Mr. Halperin. Okay, the next item on the new business is a discussion of a resolution, we don't want a revolution, resolution for the, I'm in my French mode, resolution for fully funded education.
I'll speak to this. This was a discussion that we had at our last meeting, basically asking the state to meet its original obligation to fund EBF. And, you know, given the impact that COVID has had on education in general, just to, you know, call on the governor to fully fund EBF for the year. The budget is usually wrapped up by the end of May. So the idea here would be that if the board decides to go with this resolution, then we could be in contact with our state representatives to make sure that they're advocating for that in their budget discussions. Just as history, this is a resolution that was drafted by EdRed, so it's part of a toolkit that EdRed has provided to help schools make this, you know, advocate for this particular piece. And then we also are in discussion with our partners in our bargaining units, who of course also would greatly benefit from full funding as well. So really just trying to build some coalition around this to make sure that we have a voice in how Springfield decides to fund us, which is never enough, but it would be great to just be on the radar and make sure that no matter what happens at the end of the day, that we had a voice and that we advocated for ourselves. So that's what this is.
Wonderful, thank you, Mrs. Braden. Any comments or questions from any of the other board members?
Will we be voting on this? Or is it just kind of a
Will we
voice
be?
vote? I see the form talks about ayes and nays.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm certainly an aye.
Yeah, I'm assuming, oh, sorry, I'm assuming that we would bring it to a vote at the next meeting? Is that our
Yeah, the
intention?
next meeting.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
Mhm.
And that language is already
Christie?
drafted then as the toolkit then, right?
correct. Yep, and if there are edits to this particular language, it's ours to do. It's just what Ed Red provided us, which was a pretty good start, so.
Is there any need for increased expediency, given the timing of the adoption of the budget at the state level?
Sure. I would recommend also that, individuals contact our elected representatives as well, so that's an additional piece of the puzzle that I think is important. But yeah, if we think we want to, I don't know how we would move it forward in that way, given the
Are you referring to
process.
the rule that we introduce the topic and vote the next time?
Yeah.
I think that's just a norm we have. I don't think it's a hard and fast rule, right?
It's not, no, it's not. You have it listed as a discussion topic, but are you wondering if you can vote on it tonight?
I think given the timing of when our
Yeah.
legislators need to hear from us in order to adopt the budget, maybe we ought to.
Yeah, if we have an agreement on that from the rest of the board, I mean, I'd love to hear comments and questions, but yeah, I would certainly be in favor of that.
Well, in
Mrs.
fact,
Braden, I would be in line with moving to a motion for this. I did have one comment or request, and maybe not to put you on the spot tonight, but I think it will be beneficial for our community members at large to hear what the shortfall is in the EBF funding, right? So exactly what we are partnering with Ed Red to legislate on our behalf for, so that the community at large can connect the dots in terms of our financial decisions and things of that nature.
Yeah, that's great, Tamika, and I'd be happy to put something together from a communication perspective that kind of
Yeah.
spells out the connection between all of this, because I think, as we get our property tax bills, this certainly plays in, because
Absolutely.
the less we get from the state, the more the burden is on the individual homeowner in our district. So I think that's a really good point.
Absolutely.
Yep, yeah, I can certainly put something together that we can use for communication with the community.
yes,
Fantastic. Thank you.
Yep.
yeah. So,
Any other questions or comments?
yeah.
Okay, do we have consensus on that to move forward? Because I don't know the rule to be able to move it over to vote on it this evening. I believe there is some type of
Yeah.
process that we have to follow, but I think we have consensus on this, so I think we can all agree that this is going to move forward as a consensus. And then we can vote on it
Yeah.
the next time, yeah.
Okay. That's fine. In the meantime, though, please feel free to take individual action.
Yes, I've already reached out to,
That's fantastic. Yeah.
so, yep. All right. Thank you, Mr. Braden. And the final item on that list is the discussion of the board support for the Grays Lake Pride Parade.
Also me. So, in discussion with Dr. Glickman and Mr. Weedman, we thought it might be actually more impactful than having a resolution on Pride Month to actually talk about, what the board's appetite is for supporting Pride Month, or supporting specifically the Grays Lake Pride Parade by, having a presence that says to our D46 students and staff, we see you, we welcome you, sort of living up to our diversity policy. So I just wanted to put that before the group for discussion about your appetite for it and what the options are. I know it's still coming together. It's the first year. So Jill Birdwell, who's on the board of PFLAG, I know is hustling big time to try to pull it together. There's opportunities to just volunteer to help out, but there's also opportunities to be part of the driving parade itself. So just want to put that out to the board to see what you think.
Christy, do you have a sense of when it is, or are they still in the preliminary?
It's actually on Sunday, June 20th, Father's Day, because the village has a lot going on this summer, so that's what PFLAG could get this year. It's at noon. Jill will be our kind of liaison, and she hasn't gotten me anything in writing and official yet to share with you, but she has promised. Oh, today?
A little bit of information came.
Oh, good. Thanks,
a few
Mr.
hours
Lewis.
ago and have not gotten to
Hot
it,
off the
but
presses.
I do have, it just talks about what they're looking for and where some of the volunteers are needed. So I'll put this together and make sure the board all has that information so that we can get that out as well.
Thank
But
you.
I did just get something.
Awesome.
Just today.
Yeah. So it is Father's Day, but I think they're hoping to also play off the whole mom hugs into dad hugs on Father's Day. Yeah.
Other comments or questions from board members? Online?
Okay, we'll send, Mr.
I
Lewis
just
will
want to be
send out
clear,
Yep,
would this be in lieu of the resolution or in addition to the resolution?
in lieu of,
In lieu of, okay,
yeah.
thanks.
And as I mentioned last time, the Equity Committee is already, of course, very excited to support this. So it would be also in addition to the Equity Committee being involved as well.
Great, thank you, Mrs. Braden. Topics for future agenda items.
We do have a few. Well, we have a couple of things that will go from this week's conversation or discussion to a vote next time. So that will be, just a moment, so that will be the RFP, right? That'll be the resolution for full funding, correct? Yeah. Okay, as well, the next meeting, we intend to present the strategic plan. So, board, you've all been involved in the creation of the strategic plan, but we will be presenting it to you in full. Some members of the committee that was part of creating it will be present and helping to present that to our community. So we're excited about that. And then in the future, as I mentioned earlier, we'll be sharing more information about next year's plans, along with kind of a fuller plan for all of you to see. Do cabinet members, do you have anything else to add? Okay. Board, do you have other topics? Okay.
You know, we had talked about doing a board self-evaluation after the induction of Michelle. I'm wondering if we've come back to that, and I just need a reminder, or if we have not come back to that.
I don't think you've come back to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is-
Yeah.
Maybe we should come back to that. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, and we do, that brings us to public comments. Do we have?
Yeah, we do have a few more. I'll go ahead and read those. All right, this one, there we go. This next one is from Matt Cavers, and it's entitled Procedures Moving Forward. And here's the comment. Thank you for all of your efforts this past year and getting the kids back into school while maintaining a safe environment. 2 questions. Given the availability of the vaccine and the minimal spread outdoors, at what point will the kids be able to not wear a mask at recess? 2, what is the plan moving into next year for those who want to keep their kids in remote learning? While I understand some parents' concern and of course the uniqueness of everyone's situation, it is difficult for the kids who choose to be in school because they are essentially still e-learning but in class. Will curriculum and teaching be tailored next year so that those who are in school get the full in-school experience? Thank you again. And then we have 2 from Chris Young, both about telephone calls. The first one says, can the auto calls be moved to after-school business hours? Can some non-essential messages on the website be moved to email instead of calling during the day? And the second message is, I'm so thankful for all of the real-time information that was made available during a time when we are all doing the best we could as parents. Now that we have moved to a more stable and safe environment that allows for families to choose in-person education, can we move away from the auto calls? It was such a stressful time, and we do appreciate emergency communication. However, when the phone lists a call from D46, there is a fair amount of anxiety, and also for those working disruptions to meetings and the day. Thank you for all of the work the board has done for the students and families of D46. And that is all of the comments.
Thank you, Dr. Glickman. We do have a closed session tonight, so I need a motion to enter into closed session in accordance with the Open Meetings Act.
So moved.
Second.
LaCroy,
Aye.
Nash,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
Anderson,
Aye.
and Braden.
Aye.
Very good. Thank you, everybody. We'll move into closed session.